Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Dearly beloved, make it so. Hari Om Tat Sat. So good evening, everyone, and namaste. Welcome to our Wednesday evening study and discussion of the book Realizing God, a collection of talks given by Swami Prabhavananda from the 1930s to the 1970s, gathered together by his devoted disciple Edith Tipple or Nalini. Most of you heard me talk about the book, so nothing more to be said about that. But before we begin, is there anything from anyone that you would like to bring up or discuss before we launch into the reading of tonight's selection? All right, dear, please tell us where we are in the book.
Okay, sure, Brother Shankara. Namaste and good evening, everybody. We are on page 148 in the book. That is, we're going to be starting a new chapter. I don't know whether you call it chapter. It's Incarnations and Teachers. We will be reading about Buddha, Christ, all illumined souls, Shankara, Ramanuja. So we're going to start with Buddha today. Incarnations and Teachers, Buddha. To bring peace to the hearts of all mankind was Buddha's only purpose. In spite of all the luxuries, comforts, and worldly happiness that he experienced with a beautiful wife and son and kingdom, he realized that the world is full of suffering. Nobody can escape disease and death. How could he bring immortal life, eternal freedom, and peace not to himself alone, but to all mankind? In one of the Buddhist scriptures, we read that the Tathagata, Buddha or the Illumined One, had no theories. He didn't believe in speculation or doctrines or dogmas. Anybody who came to see him to satisfy idle curiosity would go away frustrated and disappointed. But to anybody who came to him to find the way of peace, to overcome suffering and misery and death, he gave the way to nirvana. Buddha's teachings are the highest aspect of non-dualism. There is an unborn, an unoriginated, an unmade, and uncompounded, were there not, O mendicants? There would be no escape from the world of the born, the originated, the compounded. Sri Ramakrishna said, when one attains samadhi, there is no power of speech left by which to express Brahman. Just so, Buddha could not express definitely what is impossible to describe. Then again, he urged his disciples to depend upon the reality within and not on any other authority. You see, when you accept authority, you think you have known it, but the truth is within. You have to unfold that truth. Buddha said in the most famous of his teachings, which is often quoted, "Therefore, O Ananda, be a lamps unto yourselves. Be a refuge to yourselves. Hold fast to the truth as a lamp, and whosoever, Ananda, either now or after I am dead, shall be a lamp unto themselves, shall betake themselves to no external refuge, but holding fast to the truth as their lamp and holding fast as their refuge to the truth, shall look not for refuge to anyone besides themselves. It is they, Ananda, among my bhikkhus, who shall reach the very topmost height, but they must be anxious to learn." And he said, you must recognize that there are 4 noble kinds of truth. This recognition has to come. There is suffering in the world. There is a cause for the suffering. The suffering can be overcome, and there is a way to peace. This is not acceptance on mere faith or authority. It has to be experienced for oneself. Suffering is a universal experience. Old age, disease, and death, nobody can escape, but they can be escaped. Old age, disease, and death, nobody can escape, but they can be escaped. The longing for that escape, however, does not come until we find that the world cannot give us what we are seeking. Every one of us holds to this surface life as something eternal. Any comments, Brother Shankara? You want me to keep going? Okay.
Well, it said it right there at the last.
Mm-hmm.
We cling to the surface life, thinking that it is eternal, when all of the evidence, even of our senses, is that it's not, that it arises and passes away. But we want it to stay the same. We want there to be an end to the 4 noble truths. We want there to be an escape, but we are reluctant to do what is necessary to effect that escape, because it means we must abandon the idea that the world of phenomena and the world of the Stardust spacesuit is in any way something other than what arises and passes away, arises and passes away, moment to moment, hour to hour, month to month. And if we persist in having reincarnation, life after life. Now we're going to hear in plenitude over time how Sri Ramakrishna invites us not to have lifetime after lifetime, to end it here and now. But that's just part of this book. We're hearing from the Swami talking about different aspects right now. Anything else from anyone?
Something you were saying at the first part made me think of something one of the Swamis said. I can't remember which way around he said it, but it said basically that every experience is proof of Brahman, or he said that every experience contains the proof of Brahman. So if we really analyze it and say, well, what is this experience? Who's experiencing it? It's that proof that you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we can experience.
Very well said. Indeed, indeed. And of course, this is what the Buddha pointed out. We can experience the way of escape.
Yes.
But it means we must abandon the way of clinging, the way of remaining in a world of old age, disease, and death. So thank you for that. Yes, indeed. We can experience these things. Anything else from anyone? Okay, let's
Okay.
read.
Buddha did not claim to be an avatara. On the other hand, he said that Buddha is nothing but the awakened one. We are asleep. Ignorance is compared to sleep, and we have to be awakened. His most emphatic teaching is that it's possible for everyone to be awakened and be a Buddha.
And it's done by being a lamp unto yourself. To thine own self be true, and it follows the night, and it follows as the night the day, that you cannot be false to anyone. When you are not false to yourself, when you look at things honestly and sincerely, then you have the experiences that we were talking about earlier. Be a lamp unto yourself, the Buddha said. And so you needn't accept the authority of others. You can accept the guidance. Pointing at the moon is not the moon, but at least you at least have a sense of, oh yes, that is the moon. So these are the ideas that carry us along if we do indeed make the effort to be a lamp unto ourselves. Anything else from anyone?
I was just going to say that there's this sort of place to arrive at in order to be a lamp unto oneself, which is, it's kind of tricky because you do have to be humble, but you also have to be confident enough. And confidence is not the same thing as egotistical.
No.
And we can get into trouble with that, saying, oh, I'm just going to be a lamp unto myself. I don't, I know what's what. And to some degree or another, we can say that and really believe that that's true. But yeah, it's a living, we are living things in a constantly changing world. And I'm a very independent-minded sort of person, but at the same time, everything I think, feel, do, take as true in any given moment is based on things that are changing. So I have to be willing to be aware of that.
Amen to everything you said. Yes, indeed.
Actually, the Dalai Lama, it's a really great book. He did a commentary on Lamp of the Path that is, this subject basically in a very, and I love the way the Dalai Lama writes. He's so good at it.
Yes. And it's interesting to remember that what the Dalai Lama says is so simple and straightforward. My religion is kindness. My religion is kindness. It generates a great deal of kindness. Anything else from anyone? Thank you. Okay, please read on, dear.
Okay, I'll read these 4 lines one more time, Brother Shankara. Buddha did not claim to be an avatar. On the other hand, he said that Buddha is nothing but the awakened one. Whereas sleep, ignorance is compared to sleep, and we have to be awakened. His most emphatic teaching is that it's possible for everyone to be awakened and be a Buddha. The most distinguishing characteristic of Buddha was his big heart.
Mm-hmm.
He was called the compassionate one. He was ready to sacrifice his life for the sake of a lamb or a goat. Another distinguishing characteristic of Buddha and of all great teachers and illumined souls was that he pointed out that religion is very practical. He said, if A walk according to my teachings, he did not say, believe in me. A shall, even in this present life, apprehend the truth itself and see face to face. Not after you die, but in this life. As Irving Babbitt, inspired by Buddhism, said, the Buddhists would like to take the cash and let the credit go. Whatever we get in life is the most important thing. And Buddha pointed out the greatest sin is to be lazy. You see, when there is a way to escape suffering and you do not struggle to do it, that is laziness. Shankara pointed out that it is like suicide, and this is the universal truth taught by all great teachers. He also said, you have to be awakened. Any great illumined soul will insist that you have to experience the truth for yourself. No matter how you do it, do it. Nirvana is not a vacuum, not nothingness. A disciple who once had an experience of nothingness went to Swami Prabhavananda, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and said, I have attained Buddhist nirvana. There was vacuum, nothingness. Swami Prabhavananda said, no, 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 no. He said, Purna, Purna, Purna. Fullness, fullness, fullness. Now go back and meditate some more. Buddha himself attained that fullness. He said, how can there be any escape from this if there were not the fullness, the reality? Buddha based his whole philosophy not on any theory, but on the simple psychological experience of suffering. Not in the sky, nor in the depths of the ocean, nor in the caves of the mountains, nor in any place in the whole world may a man dwell without being overpowered by death. How is there laughter? How is there joy? As the world is always burning, why do you not seek a light? Ye who are surrounded by darkness. The body is wasted, full of sickness and pain. Life indeed ends in death. It is the path which opens the eyes and bestows understanding, which leads to peace, to higher wisdom, to full enlightenment, to nirvana. Just mark those words. No nothingness. He says, which opens the eyes. You get divine sight. On the full moon day in the month of Vaishak, sometime between the middle of April and the middle of May, the first month of the Indian year, Buddha was born. On this day, he attained his enlightenment, and on this day, final nirvana or liberation. The Buddhist scriptures were written after the death of Buddha. All his disciples gathered together for the first time and wrote whatever they had heard directly from him and put what they wrote down in one of the 3 baskets. They were then gathered together, edited and organized, and then published as Buddha's teachings. We call these his scriptures because his teachings are revelations. They are known as Tripitaka, 3 baskets. Buddha was born a prince. In India, even today, when any child is born, astrologers are asked to cast a horoscope. When the astrologers cast the horoscope of this child, they said that there were 2 alternatives for the boy. Either he would be a great monarch ruling over the then known world, or he would be a beggar. Of course, no father wants his son to be a beggar, especially a king. The astrologers pointed out that if the boy saw old age and disease and death, the suffering of mankind, he would renounce everything and be a beggar. So the king built a vast estate where everything was beautiful: plants, trees, shrubs, and young, healthy people. In time, the prince married and lived a luxurious life with all the comforts that anybody could want. He had 1 son. One day he told his attendant, I would like to see how people live outside. So the 2 rode on horseback into town. One after another, he met with old age, a man tottering on his limbs, sickness, a leper, and death, people carrying a corpse on their shoulders. He was horrified. Does that happen to everybody? Yes, if you live long enough, die one must. That was the beginning. These 3 universal worries had so stunned him that while his wife and son were asleep, he went away with the resolution: I must bring to mankind the way to overcome suffering. I must show mankind the way to peace. There is suffering and there is a way out, a way of peace. That's what religion or spiritual life means. Conflict and chaotic conditions arise, nation against nation, race against race, until mankind learns that we have to become spiritual aspirants and realize the truth for ourselves. If there is peace within our own hearts, we shall find that peace everywhere. And if we don't have that peace within ourselves, we shall create troubles for everybody. Any comments, Brother Shankara?
Just that last, we look around us,
I know, exactly.
we see,
We're experiencing.
and it's because the people are not peaceful within themselves.
That's right.
And so they create difficulties for themselves and one another. And, the world is just utterly full of it, from the local to the most international settings. It's all in that frame of reference.
Very true.
So if we are to escape this and not have it be our lot as well, then these great teachers all tell us what we must do. And each one of us will pick it up and carry it forward precisely as we should. That's exactly what we're told. Don't worry. You will pick up the truths and carry them forward and make them a reality for yourself, just exactly as you should. Anything else from anyone while we're paused?
This is exactly what we're seeing now, Brother Shankara, in the world. Race against race and nation against nation.
Yes.
Everything what he said, it's happening. That's
Oh,
it.
yes. No question.
Yep.
Well, it was already happening at the time that Swami wrote.
It's been, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't new.
You know, I saw something on the news. They were talking about Yemen and that, you know, how since they've been under such duress that most of the children under 5 were suffering from malnutrition and starvation. And they showed this child that was 5 years old. And it looked like about the size of a 2-year-old, but his brain was completely fried and it was malformed from malnutrition. And it was, you know, and I just thought about it, like, well, why would the guy get his wife pregnant under those conditions? And he didn't really look emaciated. But then I just thought about how desire created so much suffering.
Mhm.
And it was just such a pertinent example. And then I started thinking about how I was judging the person, but then I really realized that, you know, people are just in different levels of truth. But the suffering and the guilt that he must have must be immense. And it was just such a poignant example of how suffering brings desire brings suffering.
Yes. What a heartrending thing to see. And thank you for sharing it with us. It is, we see these and hear of these terrible, heartrending things. And it is, as you said, all the product of desire. And that's what one of the Four Noble Truths is. Put an end to desire, and you put an end to, eventually you put an end to suffering.
I think that, good evening, everyone. Good evening,
Hello.
Brother Shankara. I think what is scary to me is that a lot of these children their brains are becoming fried. They're living in extreme violence, and they're not getting educated. And these children are going to be taking over the world. So there's like a cycle of
Yes.
that's occurring, that, you know, it's hard for people to get to points of being thinking about a higher living if they're constantly hungry. And it's a way of keeping people down, you know, of keeping, that's what's, you know, these regimes do.
Amen.
But, you know, very sad that these children are growing up with such trauma. I mean, you cannot get over what they're experiencing.
That's why I said it was heart-wrenching. Indeed it is. If you let your heart rest on it, it is very painful. And particularly since they're along with it, there's this feeling of helplessness. You know, I do what I can within my reach. I give what I can, I offer what I can, but so little against so much. So, as you say, these are the children who will take over the world. Oh, bless us. Thank you, dear. Anything from anyone else? All right, let's read on.
Buddha was not pessimistic, nor was he optimistic in the worldly sense. The difficulty with us is that when suffering comes, we think it's going to last forever. And when we have pleasures, we think they're going to last forever. But nothing lasts. We cling to that which is ever in flux. In regard to suffering, Buddha recognizes that we must transcend our finite minds and reach the unchanging reality nirvana. Hindus call it moksha or turiya. The fourth, the transcendental, or samadhi. Christ calls it to be born in spirit. Nirvana literally means extinction to suffering. To quote Buddha, wherein there is no more birth, nor suffering, nor old age, nor death. He found a way to attain this. Be earnest in effort, and you too shall soon be free from the great evil. This state of attainment is described in negative terms. It is, in Buddha's words, a state in which we are delivered from time. There is the misconception in the West that eternal life or immortality means continuity in time. But modern science proves that the continuity of existence is there for everything in the universe. There's no such thing as complete destruction. Only a change of forms and names. This existed in the past and will exist in the future. It may just become dust and go back to its elements, but it still continues to exist. Attaining to immortal life is beyond time, but it is the life of realizing the ultimate reality, attaining perfection, while still living in the body. The nirvana of Buddha is, in positive terms, means eternal peace, realizing the unborn, undying, and changeless reality. There are two extremes which a spiritual aspirant must not follow. The habitual practice, on the one hand, of those things whose attraction depends upon the passions, and especially upon sensuality. And the habitual practice, on the other hand, of asceticism or self-mortification, which is painful, unworthy, and unprofitable. Let me read this one more time. There are two extremes which a spiritual aspirant must not follow. The habitual practice, on the one hand, of those things whose attraction depends upon the passions, and especially upon sensuality, and the habitual practice, on the other hand, of asceticism or self-mortification, which is painful, unworthy, and unprofitable. There is a middle path, avoiding these two extremes, a path which opens the eyes and bestows understanding, which leads to peace of mind, to the higher wisdom, to full enlightenment, to nirvana. One more time. There is a middle path, avoiding these two extremes, a path which opens the eyes and bestows understanding, which leads to peace of mind, to the higher wisdom, to full enlightenment, to nirvana.
And that's what we're studying.
Yeah.
We're studying that middle path,
Mhm.
that way of avoiding the extremes, certainly avoiding the worldly, but also avoiding this base asceticism that says, oh, I'll just put all this aside. Not because I want to, but because I think I should. Well, that's just hypocrisy. And Sri Krishna condemns it in the most extreme terms in the Gita. He says that the person who talks and behaves that way can only be called a hypocrite. And so this is this middle path. This middle path is the one that will work for us. The thing that is the difficulty for almost all of us is impatience. We want it to happen quickly.
Right away.
And so we become impatient, which is just another form of distraction. And so what to do? We have to be patient and persevering and live in the expectation that if we do our spiritual practices, if we sustain ourselves by that graceful way of spiritual practice, then it will happen. We will achieve nirvana, as the Swami just said. Nirvana, the end of suffering. Anything else from anyone?
You know, I was, one of the Swamis was talking about Sri Ramakrishna and his tantric experiences, and some of them would be, kind of beyond the pale for a lot of these discussions. But he said that that's not really possible for someone unless you have extreme discernment and discipline. And and then I started thinking about paying attention to it in my own life, and I don't know, it kind of, you develop more and more discernment, and then you have to develop the discipline to follow that discernment. And that in itself will keep you out of a lot of problems. That will prevent a lot of suffering.
Yes. Well, Sri Ramakrishna's pursuit of Tantra, there are 64 tantric practices. Most of us, if we set out to attempt Tantra, if we managed in the rest of our lives to master 2 or 3, that would be a great achievement indeed, because they're extremely difficult. They have to do with the most potent aspects of our psychology and our latent and our subconscious and our unconscious mind. Sri Ramakrishna mastered all 64 in a 5-year period. Now, that may not be unprecedented, but there is no other record of it that anyone can find in writing about Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Saradananda and others could not find any other record of anyone ever having achieved the mastery of all of those tantric practices, certainly not in such a short period of time, which only betrays who Sri Ramakrishna was. He was not an ordinary human being. He was an avatar, an incarnation. So, but I'm glad you brought that up about the Tantra. And it's not something that we are advised to take on. It's not Tantra, though some of the practices like mantra meditation and so on are tantric in their nature. It's not that we're not deliberately practicing mantra, we're using a tool and technique.
Well, I was just, it just impressed upon me the amount of discernment that it would take for some of those practices.
Yes, you're absolutely right in that you've chosen a word well, discernment. And then following, as you said, your discernment.
We have to be very determined for that, Brother Shankara. Just like
Oh,
just like achieving a degree, when you want to do something to get a bachelor's degree, how many years we work hard for that, how much work we put in. The
yes,
same thing with the meditation. It seems so easy for outsiders. It's not easy. It's a lot of discipline, a lot of perseverance. Once you get there, then you keep going. You will keep going. There's no backing off. That's one thing I can tell.
well,
There's
Swami Prabhavananda's 4 instructions for
yes,
meditation are so illuminating.
there's
The
no
first instruction is astounding in its implications. What he says is, this is his first instruction for meditation. The chosen ideal is you yourself,
yes.
no different. Learn to feel that living presence. The chosen ideal, in other words, that which you are chanting a mantra of or visualizing or whatever. The chosen ideal is you yourself, your true original nature. The chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. And then is the other 3 instructions for meditation are perseverance, or practice, perseverance, and expectation. So once you've received instruction, you must practice. And you must be persevering. That is today. You must do it today and tomorrow and the day after that. That's what's meant by perseverance. And do it in the expectation that if you fulfill the first 3 of those conditions, those instructions, you will achieve the goal quite naturally and spontaneously. So I always like to quote those to people because it makes so clear what is being discerned, as Bhagavan Das said about discernment. Anything else from anyone?
To me, it took me some time to understand the chosen ideal is me. After I started deeply thinking about it, yeah, it is me because the universe, God is internal and external. I am inside that divinity. So that is what I am doing. It is me, but I am inside the divine whole universe. I'm inside the divine chosen ideal. I'm inside him or her. That's when I understood, yes, that makes sense.
Precisely, dear.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Move on.
Yes, please.
Buddha, Sri Krishna, Sri Ramakrishna, Jesus, all the great ones taught the middle path. That is the way of peace. Buddha lived 600 years before Christ. Buddhism is not a separate religion from Hinduism. It is an aspect of Hinduism. From ignorance arises the sense of ego. This ego seems to be permanent, as if it is not changing. Buddha gives the illustration of a torch. If you take a lighted torch and wave it around, you see a circle, but it is changing all the time, point by point, point by point. But again, in order to see that circle that is always changing, there has to be an unchangeable reality behind it. From the sense of ego, which we cling to so definitely, I want this, I want that, this is my possession, my life, arise attachment and aversion, what Buddha calls the thirst for life. Patanjali calls it clinging to life. Buddha emphasizes that this is the cause of suffering. Yes. The middle path of moderation, which Buddha teaches, we also find in the Bhagavad Gita. Yoga is not for the man who overeats or for him who fasts excessively. It's not for him who sleeps too much or the keeper of exaggerated vigils. Let a man be moderate in his eating and his recreation, moderately active, moderate in sleep and wakefulness. He will find that yoga takes away all his unhappiness. Let me read this one more time. The middle path of moderation, which Buddha teaches, we also find in the Bhagavad Gita. Yoga is not for the man who overeats or for him who fasts excessively. It's not for him who sleeps too much or the keeper of exaggerated vigils. Let a man be moderate in his eating and his recreation, moderately active, moderate in sleep and wakefulness. He will find that yoga takes away all his unhappiness. I shall read to you in Buddha's words the 5 forms of meditation. Said the disciple, teach me, O Lord, the meditations to which I must devote myself in order to let my mind enter into the paradise of the pure land. Buddha said, there are 5 meditations. The first meditation is the meditation of love, in which you must so adjust your heart that you long for the weal, W-E-A-L, and welfare of all beings, including the happiness of your enemies. You have to send a thought of love towards all beings in the universe. The second meditation is the meditation of pity. It makes you think of all beings in distress, vividly representing in your imagination their sorrows and anxieties, so as to arouse a deep compassion for them in your soul. The third meditation is the meditation of joy, in which you think of the prosperity of others and rejoice with their rejoicing. You have to be free of jealousy. The fourth meditation is the meditation on impurity, in which you consider the evil consequences of corruption, the effects of sin and diseases. The fifth meditation is the meditation on serenity, in which you rise above love and hate, tyranny and oppression, wealth and want, and regard your own fate with impartial calmness and perfect tranquility. I can read these 5 one more time, Brother Shankara.
Please do.
Okay. I shall read to you in Buddha's words the 5 forms of meditation. Said the disciple, teach me, O Lord, the meditations to which I must devote myself in order to let my mind enter into the paradise of the pure land. Buddha said there are 5 meditations. The first meditation is the meditation of love, in which you must so adjust your heart that you long for the weal and welfare of all beings, including the happiness of your enemies. You have to send a thought of love towards all beings in the universe. The second meditation is the meditation of pity. It makes you think of all beings in distress, vividly representing in your imagination their sorrows and anxieties, so as to arouse a deep compassion for them in your soul. The third meditation is the meditation of joy, in which you think of the prosperity of others and rejoice with their rejoicing. You have to be free of jealousy. The fourth meditation is the meditation on impurity, in which you consider the evil consequences of corruption, the effects of sin and diseases. The fifth meditation is the meditation on serenity, in which you rise above love and hate, tyranny and oppression, wealth and want, and regard your own fate with impartial calmness and perfect tranquility.
Now that last
Yes.
is the real key. If you can regard your own fate with calmness and tranquility, then you have gained mastery of the mind, because the mind will constantly fret and worry about your fate and what's going to become of you and whether you're going to have enough, all that stuff. It will go on doing that regardless of your mastery of it. It's like a record playing that just goes on playing and playing, because it's not you doing it. It is all of your past mental impressions being touched on by the gunas. This is explained very well by Krishna in the Gita. So it is your past mental impressions being touched on by the gunas. As Krishna says, it is my gunas that create everything. And in the case of individual human beings, it is their samskaras, their vasanas, being touched on by the gunas that create the reality that we experience. We think it's our own. It's not our own. It's just an artifact of the fact that this Stardust spacesuit has been around in different forms for a long time. And of course, the gunas are instrumental in the development and evolution of each individual life, as well as the universe itself. So anything else from anyone about any of that or anything else?
I just have a question. These meditations, do you have to do them in order, or do
No.
they seem like they would come randomly as you go through experiences?
They are. There is a logic to their order,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look at them thoughtfully and carefully over a period of time, you will discern the logic of their order. But pick one that appeals to you. For example, if you find it that your heart quite naturally experiences pity for all of that is suffering in the universe, then go with that and let yourself feel that fully and the effects within you. What can I do about this? What can I do about this? And as has been said, it's attributed variously, but be the change that you want to see. And if you want to overcome the pitiable, you become the radiant being in which the pitiable finds it hard to coexist with. It will share in your radiance if that's what you become. So you just decide which of these 5 is useful to you. But as I said, if you look at them dispassionately and logically, you will see that there is reason for the Buddha suggesting them in the order that he suggests.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone?
Shailesh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you, Shailesh.
So I see this as a cause and effect. I see more these meditations as an effect, coming from the tradition which we follow here. The cause I see from my own experiences, chanting the Guru mantra and having love for Sri Ramakrishna and doing the spiritual practices, whatever our Guru suggests in our order, in our tradition. And over the period of time, a state of mind will come. This is coming from my own experiences, that you feel compassionate spontaneously for all the animals. And the love and compassion. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, I remember very clearly, he said there should not be any pity, but compassion. Who are you to pity or look down upon? Something like that, to that strength. So
Yes.
I would say that it's more of a compassion and love. And it is spontaneous. If it comes spontaneously, then you'd look at that. And then if you are worried about someone and you would like to pray for them, that's how then you would pray spontaneously, and so on and so forth. But I personally was instructed from my own understanding from within is that not to use the mind and intellect to pray, initiate an action where you start worrying about someone's condition, because that's what I was caught into a circle. And so the instruction was very clear that let it go. You pray and let it go, and then you just keep practicing our spiritual practice of chanting the Guru mantra and keeping Sri Ramakrishna at the center of the spiritual practice. And I think that helps. Now, the Swami has mentioned that these 5, types of meditation, and I think, I don't know, I'm sure he had this understanding, but from my own understanding, it's I wouldn't compartmentalize it. It just keeping Sri Ramakrishna at the center of my spiritual practice. Whatever spontaneously comes, I just pay attention to it and also let it go. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Well, wonderfully said, as always. You have your own way of dealing with these things and practicing, and clearly it's productive. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been with us all these years. And so we each have to decide for ourselves what it is that's appropriate for us to do. We get some instruction from qualified teachers. We get them from books, from lectures, from personal instruction from the Ramakrishna Order Swamis. But the idea is very simple. Do something that moves you away from the material and the phenomenal, that which arises and passes away, and gives you some grasp of what it means to be an eternal, changeless, infinite being, which is what is at the core of Nirguna Brahman, Nirguna Atma. We also have the Saguna Brahman, the Saguna Atma. That's what we're experiencing tonight. That's Brahman with attributes, the Atman with attributes. Otherwise, we would not be able to experience this. We are experiencing those attributes. And so we are able to share this with one another. And I think we've come to the end of our time, haven't we?
Time, Brother Shankara. I will stop it right here. Good stopping point.
Yes.
We can continue next week from there.
I want to just throw something in there, brother. Since we've mentioned these two terms a lot tonight, but pay attention to the difference in pity and compassion.
Oh, yes.
And you'll see there's a big difference, and that really pity, I can't say it now, pity is really kind of the enemy of compassion.
Yes. Well, this is the subject for this coming Sunday's talk. The Karma Yoga, Sri Ramakrishna's Karma Yoga. And it's exactly that. What did he teach about how to be and serve other living beings? And it goes beyond pity, it goes beyond compassion. As you say, he remarked with some asperity about this business of pity because of its tendency to look downward.
Yeah, it makes you're othering the person.
Right, precisely. And he says the same is true even with compassion. But I'll save the punchline for Sunday. So anything else from anyone? Thank you as always. All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, secure in the knowledge that the mother and father being that introduce the prayer, that are introduced in the prayer that open these sessions, hold us securely in a loving and protective embrace. This we are assured by Thakur Ma, Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, and by those loving beings as Mother and Father. So may we be well and in bright spirits until Saturday, which is our next opportunity to gather together as a class. Thank you all for being here this evening. And it's always such a delight to share these times with you. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears.
Good night,
Good
dear
night to
heart.
you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Night,
Good night.
everybody.
Stay warm.